to the alcohol permitting process in your county and state, to commercial real estate brokers, to expecting attrition among your opening crew. These are some of the unknown tricks of the trade that you are going to need to open your restaurant. Can you get a task list for opening a restaurant from AI? Yes, you can. Will it be average? Yes, it will. You know why? Because AI scrapes the entire world's knowledge and gives the average. So if you want average results, go with AI. If you want excellent results, if you want apex results, I've got the information you need. It's gleaned from my blood, sweat, and tears and the millions of dollars that flesh and blood investors have given me to invest in my restaurants. This is Open Your Restaurant by the Industry Standard, the podcast for entrepreneurs like you on the path towards opening your restaurant. Experience is a cruel teacher. She gives you the test first and the lessons later. I created the Open Your Restaurant podcast so that when you are tested by the restaurant industry, you'll have heard the lessons and you will know the answers. I'm your host, Brandon Sharp. As an executive chef, I earned 7 consecutive Michelin stars, and as an entrepreneur, I own and operate 3 high-end full-service restaurants. If you want to learn to cook, come and work in one of my kitchens. But if you want to learn the tactics and strategies of opening your first restaurant, stay right here. So on last week's podcast, I discussed some of the root causes of restaurant failure. If you are listening to this, I'm assuming that those don't apply to you. Now, as for the task list, as for the critical path, the hundreds of tasks that have to be done on your countdown from day 365 before opening to day 1 before opening, that critical path document can be found as part of the Restaurant Launchpad. The link is in the show notes. It's a set of downloadable digital assets, pre-opening budget, year 1 budget, 5-year pro forma, critical path countdown to opening, and business plan. All these templates that I've made for you, they will save you hundreds if not thousands of dollars. They will save you days if not weeks of administrative time. Again, the link is in the show notes for those. So I'm assuming that you are serious about moving forward with your restaurant project, with your dream of having a restaurant project. So today we're going to talk about 7 things that you will not hear anywhere else that are crucial and that will be hacks for you when it comes to the weeks and months leading up to opening day, and a couple that will come in handy right post-opening. Week 1, week 2, after the doors have opened already. The decision pyramid of a restaurant or any business has at its base the huge decisions that form the foundation of the organization, right? The concept, the location, the product, the personnel at the ownership level, right? You, maybe the investors, maybe you have a partner in it. And so these things must, of course, be done carefully and deliberately, because changing them is expensive and potentially will undo everything you've already done to reverse these decisions. So these are things that are the foundational building blocks of your business. They have to be done deliberately. You have to get these right. So those are the base of the pyramid. And once those cornerstones of the business are laid, then the entrepreneur needs to make a host of less consequential but more frequent decisions, such as kitchen equipment, bar equipment, interior finishes, management personnel, operating systems, vendors, sources, those sorts of things. So those are all big, important decisions. Some of them need to be made by you at the ownership level. Some of them can be made by your directors and managers, depending on the size of your organization. And so changing your mind regarding those decisions can be expensive, but it's usually recoverable. And so finally, as you close in on opening day and time accelerates and you're 12 weeks out, then 10, then 8, then 7, then 6, then 5, then you're counting days instead of weeks before opening, then you're going to make dozens and sometimes hundreds of decisions a day. Napkin folds, position numbers, table numbers, social media posts, cocktail recipes, all this stuff has to be agreed upon and made in a rational manner. All these have to be made in a rational and not an emotional manner, and they need to be communicated effectively, because these are not decisions that you are going to be the one acting on them day in, day out, every single shift, right? You're going to delegate those to the managers, who are then going to train your line level personnel to carry out the policies and procedures based on those little decisions that you have made along the way. And so then at that point in the process, speaking from experience, it is extremely challenging to both keep momentum of the project, to keep forward progress toward opening day, and also not to let anything either get past you or to become lost in the shuffle. The above examples that I gave, those are all the knowns, right? All of these items will show up on the critical path, again, which is your big to-do list that counts down to opening day. But what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the podcast today are 7 little-known hacks. And sorry, I hate calling things hacks, but I don't know what else to call them. Think of them as like the depth charges that your aircraft carrier would release to, attract the torpedoes away from smashing into the hull of your carrier. You need to get your restaurant open, right, so that the cash starts flowing in rather than out. And these are things that can prevent major delays to your progress. First of all, number 1, get clarity on the alcohol permitting process for your state, county, and municipality. Laws, boards, permits, they all differ wildly from state to state. I've dealt with them in California. I've dealt with them in North Carolina. I hear they're an incredible headache in Massachusetts and New York, but I doubt they're easy anywhere. Let's talk about California. In California, you can snap up a liquor license on the open market or as part of a restaurant purchase. And to someone in North Carolina starting a restaurant, that sounds insane because of the bureaucratic hoops you have to jump through in this state to get even a beer license. So in North Carolina, when I went to procure my first liquor license for Hawthorne and Wood, it could only be done in person at the ABC headquarters in Raleigh. I went to the office in person. It took a few tries because they were only accepting cashier's checks at that point, so I couldn't use my debit card or even write a personal check. None of that, of course, was mentioned on the website. And so the second time around for Bluebird, a little over 2 years later, I went to the website, and they had stopped accepting drop-in appointments. So I had to schedule an appointment, and the next one available was 6 months out, but we were 12 weeks from opening. And all of those appointment slots, of which there were only like 4 a day, Monday through Thursday, all of those appointment slots have been snapped up by a few fucking smartasses who were then selling those on the open market. Because anybody, you didn't have to prove any sort of thing that you needed an appointment with the board. You could just book those appointments, and then on Craigslist or somewhere, accept, hey, Venmo me $250 and I'll put you on, and I'll flip my name on this appointment slot over to yours. So and then the third time around for Proximo, which is our most recent project, the appointment system had completely been done away with, and then I was required to take my chances again with the drop-in visit. So I advise you to get ahead of this one, because it's been my experience that people in government positions have no sense of urgency, they do not fucking care, and they have no understanding of the relentless pressure that those of us in private enterprise face. 2, find yourself a commercial real estate broker who has plenty of experience doing restaurant deals. So you should likely be looking for a second-generation restaurant space to keep your PME. PME stands for plumbing, mechanical, and engineering. To keep, or plumbing, mechanical, and electrical costs as low as possible in the construction phase of your project. And in a later episode of the podcast, again, I'm going to go through PME, LOI, IRR, TI, CAM, all of those abbreviations that you're going to need to know both in real estate, in construction, in banking, and in business. But anyway, you want to keep your PME costs low. So you're looking probably for a second-generation restaurant space. That means a location that has already been a restaurant before, because that means that most of the plumbing and especially hoods and things like that will be in place for your concept. Here is a little bit of 24 karat gold of dealing with a restaurant broker. You will not be the one paying that broker. The landlord will pay both his own broker and your broker. That's how commercial real estate deals work. So don't try and do this on your own. You can do it. You get this expertise for free because the landlord is the one who will pay your broker. Your broker will help you with locations, demographics, and most importantly, lease negotiations and what to look for in a lease. That broker is going to get the lease from the landlord's broker before you do. And he or she is going to read it top to bottom, because that's how he or she is going to make his or her money, right? And they're going to say, oh, look, you need to push back on this one, you need to push back on that clause, it's missing this, blah, blah, blah. And so that will be your broker will be a huge advocate for you. Sometimes you'll be in a situation where the broker is representing both you and the landlord. It's an odd situation, but I have seen it several times. I advise you to avoid this if possible. And then lastly, if you're dealing with a restaurant broker who is selling you an existing business, and here I'm talking about a restaurant broker, not a real estate broker. If you are planning to buy a business from a restaurant broker, and they're selling you an existing lease in addition to the business and probably the equipment, that broker and the landlord he is representing will likely not pay your broker. In that case, you are probably better off using your lawyer or a real estate lawyer who is affiliated with your lawyer to negotiate the terms of the sale and the lease. Restaurant brokers do not like to deal with real estate brokers, and the landlord in a business deal, as opposed to a strict real estate deal, has no incentive to deal with your broker to get you to sign, because he already has the current tenant who is trying to sell on the hook, still paying rent with a personal guarantee. So there's one little touch of gray to the silver lining of not having to pay a real estate broker. Number 3, let's say you're dealing with a contractor, which you probably will if your build out is going to cost you more than $30,000. If your contractor's firm has other projects going at the same time as your own, lock in a standing weekly or twice weekly meeting on your calendar and your contractor's calendar. Depending on the scope of your build out, your project can go off the rails pretty quickly without you even realizing it if the contractor isn't around. For example, if your contractor is doing, some lucrative 5-acre fancy residential construction for a wealthy client who is demanding that their work be done soon and be done first because they have family coming in for a wedding, that contractor may be tempted, and not only tempted, but maybe incentivized to move resources in the form of subcontractors over to that other project while he puts yours on hold. And if he does that, he'll probably just send one guy over to act busy with a frickin' tape measure and a shop broom to your place, right? Another issue that can arise is that subcontractors do their work out of sequence. And this can happen, one, if they're not talking to each other or the contractor's not around. And a lot of times what I've seen from subs is that they will find ways to kill time if they can't get in touch with the contractor, if the foreman's not around. They don't, because they want to be on the clock, right? They want to keep getting paid, but they don't quite know what they should be doing. But let's say that they do some of their work out of sequence. Maybe the drywall guys close up the bathroom wall before the plumbers had moved the hand sink like they were supposed to. So now the wall has to be cut open again so that the water lines can be moved. Delays like this, which are costly in both time and money, can be avoided if you and your contractor stay in constant contact about the timeline and the order of operations. A clear understanding of the workflow will help you ask the subcontractor smart questions when the contractor is not on site. And so even if you're not comfortable bossing them around, if they know that you know that they know that you know what is supposed to happen, that will help keep them on task. Pro tip: bring coffee and donuts on Friday or Monday mornings for the crew. Number 4, expect attrition. Attrition simply means that people quit, leave, get fired, don't show up. So attrition is your workforce fading away one person at a time. But anyway, number 4 is to expect attrition. No matter how good of a boss or leader you are, no matter how inspiring your vision is, some of the people that you hire are going to quit. Don't take this personally. So your project may be so personal to you that it's no different than you figuratively cutting up your chest, opening your rib cage, taking out your heart and putting it on the counter. It may be that personal to you, and it may be that painful when people leave, but don't take their decisions personally. They're doing it because of themselves, not because of you. Some workers love the energy and adrenaline of opening a new restaurant, but either aren't cut out for or have no interest in the day-to-day operations. So, seek out the ones that you want to keep on the team and give them your time and attention. Your energy will be wasted if you spend it trying to hold on to workers who don't want to be there anyway. Lastly, look for that diamond in the rough, that one line-level employee who has charisma, confidence, positive attitude, and who might just be a natural leader. These qualities can trump industry-specific experience because they are so rare. So find that person, identify them early if they exist, spend some personal time with them. If you value their DNA and what they are bringing, get that DNA as part of your restaurant culture. Bring them in close. Number 5, do not assume that forgiveness is better than permission with your local agencies. Those inspectors that enforce building, fire, health, and all the other municipal codes, they are not in their jobs because they are creative thinkers who don't give a fuck about the rules. They are, instead, bound by the law to play by those rules and to make sure that you do as well. Get to know them early in the process and find out which ones will actually be doing the inspections on your site. The more you understand their expectations, the more they understand your vision, the more smoothly the permitting processes will go and the fewer delays you will endure. Another pro tip, if you're taking over a second-generation restaurant space, you can go on probably the county website, sometimes the state website, but most likely the county website, and you can find the latest inspection report from the restaurant that you are taking over. That will give you access to all of the notes, and they're usually pretty extensive. That will give you access to all of the notes that the last inspector took, and it should be a relatively recent report. So they'll tell you, so if there's a pest problem, it will be there. If there's a problem with the floor caving in, in front of the dish sink, it will be there. All of the structural and equipment stuff that may be part of your lease negotiation or your build out or your construction costs, some of that can be troubleshot right there. Not only that, you can anticipate those when you talk to the health department again for the first time. You can say, hey, I read up, I saw that when Ray ran this bar, he had a problem with the floor in front of the dish sink. There was a threshold that was not ADA compliant. There was a leak above the grill. And you can address those, and that will, believe me, that will lay the groundwork for a smoother permitting process and a better relationship with the municipality, the county, and the state. Number 6, leading up to opening, focus on your product, not your marketing. All right, your marketing is the gas pedal, but it is not the gas. Let me say that again. Focus on your product, not your marketing. Your restaurant will be judged by your guests on its food, service, and ambiance, not the timing of the transitions on its Instagram reels or something. Nail the basics, capital letters, bold, underline, italic, nail the basics. Train your staff until they know the menu better than you. Iterate the recipes until they are 10 out of 10. All the little beautiful touches that are going to make your bar or dining room special, those are all going to go in 48 to 24 hours before you open the doors for the first time. So don't open your restaurant or your bar and let guests into a space that is half finished. If you throw open the doors with an untrained staff, inconsistent food, and a half-finished dining room, your guests will tell their friends that their experiences were terrible. And this is where marketing comes in. If you have done a fantastic job marketing, but everybody who comes in is having a terrible experience, you will be bringing more and more and more and more people in faster and faster and faster to have a terrible experience, and you will accelerate your own demise. 7, now is not the time for work-life harmony. I realize this is an unpopular sentiment in this day and age. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a restaurant entrepreneur, surely you know this already. I grant you permission to work as hard as you need to get and keep your restaurant open. Everything you want is on the other side of hard work. This is the time for massive action. Pain is temporary. Pride is forever. No one but you gives a damn about your business until and unless you make it too good for them to ignore. So those are my 7 original and unique pre-opening and slightly post-opening hacks for opening your own restaurant. If this was of value to you, go up to the menu, hit the drop down, give us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, and most importantly, share this episode with someone who you think has a bright future in the restaurant industry. Stay humble, stay hungry.